Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. When I first heard that the Miami Dolphins were discussing a potential trade of tight end, Jonnu Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'll be honest, I raised an eyebrow. And my first reaction? What are the Dolphins even thinking? I mean, Jonnu Smith just had a Pro Bowl year, statistically the best season of his career. We're talking 88 receptions, over 800 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. That kind of production doesn't exactly grow on trees, especially for a tight end. But as the days passed and I let the idea marinate, I started to see the bigger picture. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this isn't as wild as it first sounded. In fact, if the Dolphins play this right, and that's a big if, they might actually come out ahead in the long run. You've got to look at this beyond the numbers and think about the bigger strategy. Let's start with the most obvious factor. Jonnu Smith is about to turn 30. In football years, especially for a tight end who's not known for blocking, that's edging toward the final act of his prime. And when you consider Miami's recent history with extending aging stars, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey, anyone, you start to see why the front office might be a little gun-shy. They've already signaled they're moving on from Ramsey, and there's every indication Hill's time is limited too. His contract gives the team a clean out next year, and honestly, the off-field drama might push them to pull that trigger. So now, with Smith looking for a new deal, it's only logical. They're taking a cautious approach. He's a great weapon, sure, but is he worth another multi-year investment just as the team is flirting with a full-scale rebuild? That brings us to the next point, and it's a big one. The Dolphins are not just tweaking things around the edges. This feels like the early stages of a soft reboot, maybe even a full teardown and rebuild situation. The front office used a good chunk of their 2024 draft capital to shore up the trenches, especially on the defensive line. That tells you a lot. Chris Greer might not come out and say it, but actions speak louder than press conferences. The 2019 blueprint is looking outdated, if not outright flawed. The team is trying to pivot. Next year, when they likely release Hill and free up some cap space, I wouldn't be surprised to see even more big names head out the door. The Dolphins are stacking for the future, and sometimes that means letting go of players who still have juice left, because they won't be around when the rebuild reaches its peak. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Why trade a guy who just had a monster year? Well, pump the brakes for a second. Let's talk about how that year actually looked. According to a breakdown from our very own Jose Esquer, Jonnu Smith only played in about 55% of the Dolphins' offensive snaps last season. That's barely over half. Not exactly what you expect from a so-called Pro Bowl cornerstone. On top of that, Smith's reputation as a tight end is more glorified slot receiver than dual threat beast. He's a pass catcher, plain and simple, and not a particularly dangerous one after the catch unless you scheme it perfectly. He's not a blocker. He's not dragging linebackers 5 yards downfield. So you gotta ask, are we paying for a highlight reel season or for a player that actually elevates your offense? And look, I get it. Jonnu wants a new deal. This is probably his last real shot at a solid payday before age catches up with him. That's the nature of the game. You don't blame the player for wanting to cash in, especially when he's coming off a season like that. But from the Dolphins' point of view, this is where things get tricky. Because if Smith wants top-tier tight end money, and you better believe he does, then you gotta weigh the risks. Before last season, he never caught more than 50 passes in a year. Never broke 600 receiving yards. So, do you pay top dollar for one breakout season? Or do you hedge your bets, knowing the odds of regression are high, especially with a player on his 4th NFL team? And that's another thing. 4 teams in the NFL already. Think about that. If Smith were truly a franchise-changing tight end, do you think he'd be bouncing from team to team like this? Probably not. He's a good piece, don't get me wrong, but he's not elite. That breakout season? Let's not forget that a lot of those receptions came off screen passes, behind the line of scrimmage, where all he had to do was turn and run. It was smart scheming, not dominant playmaking. That's the context you need when evaluating a player's value. He benefited from Mike McDaniel's system, and the numbers reflect that. But systems change, defenses adapt, and regression, it hits fast in the NFL. Now let's flip this around and ask, what could Miami actually get in return? Truthfully, not a whole lot. It's not like teams are lining up to throw second-round picks at a soon-to-be 30-year-old tight end with one great season under his belt. But here's where it gets interesting. If the Steelers, who are admittedly deep at the tight end position, were to offer someone like Darnell Washington, that's a deal you at least have to consider. Washington is a massive physical presence. He hasn't broken out yet, but the potential is there. And more importantly, he's on a rookie contract. That's gold for a team like Miami that's trying to reset the books and build for the next window. Look, I'm not saying you just dump Jonnu Smith for a handful of peanuts. That's not what this is about. If the offer isn't right, you keep him. Let him play out the final year of his contract, and maybe you get another productive season while developing younger players behind him. But if you're not planning on extending him, and all signs point to that being the case, then you have to explore options. Even a mid-round pick or developmental player with upside is better than letting him walk for nothing, especially if this rebuild is going to take the next 2 or 3 years. You want assets. You want flexibility. Smith, for all his talent, doesn't align with that long-term timeline. And let's not forget the emotional side of this. Fans are attached to players who produce. It's natural. Jonnu Smith had a fun year. He became a reliable target, but football is a business, and smart organizations know when to sell high. This could be Miami's chance to do just that. Offload a veteran on the upswing before the inevitable decline sets in. Again, not saying it has to happen, just that it should be considered. The Dolphins have done a good job staying competitive while retooling, but at some point you either commit to the present or plan for the future. They can't do both forever, and the Smith situation is a perfect example of that crossroads. So here's where I land. I'm not against the Dolphins trading Jonnu Smith if the price is right. That's a key detail. Don't force it. Don't give him away just to shake things up. But be honest about where the team is, what the next few years will look like, and whether Smith fits into that vision. If he does, great, keep him. But if he doesn't, if he's just one more soon-to-be expensive piece in a slowly crumbling puzzle, then make the move. Because at the end of the day, it's not about last season's numbers, it's about next season's goals. And right now, the Dolphins need to be thinking long-term, not short-term feel-goods. That's how you build a winner. Not just for this year, for the future. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? Ladies and gentlemen, football fans all around the world, buckle up because we've got a bombshell rumor coming straight out of Miami. That's right. Sources close to the situation are reporting that RASUL Douglas, the standout cornerback, has just arrived at the Miami Dolphins headquarters to finalize a massive deal. We're talking about a 4-year contract that could reshape the Dolphins secondary for years to come. This is the kind of move that shakes up the entire AFC East and puts Miami in serious contention. For those of you who followed Douglas's career, you know he's been one of the most consistent and underrated defensive backs in the league. And now he's about to bring all that experience, ball hawking ability, and leadership to South Beach. Can you imagine him locking down one side of the field in those iconic aqua and orange colors? It's about to get real in Miami. Now let's rewind for a second and talk about how we even got to this point. RASUL Douglas had an incredible 2023 season with the Buffalo Bills, proving to be a game changer on defense. His ability to read quarterbacks, anticipate routes, and make clutch interceptions made him one of the most sought-after free agents in this offseason. The Dolphins, always aggressive under their current front office, wasted no time swooping in when they got wind that Douglas might be available. Rumors started swirling last week, but today multiple insiders spotted him entering the Dolphins facility, looking sharp, focused, and ready to make things official. If the signing goes through as expected, this could be one of the smartest moves Miami has made in recent years. It's a clear signal that the Dolphins are going all in, doubling down on their already impressive defense and preparing for a serious playoff push. But what does this mean for the Dolphins' current roster? Well, for starters, adding RASUL Douglas immediately upgrades their cornerback group to one of the best in the league. Pairing him up with the likes of Jalen Ramsey, when healthy, gives Miami a terrifying duo on the outside. Opposing quarterbacks are going to have nightmares trying to throw against these two. Not to mention, It gives the Dolphins defensive coordinator so much more flexibility with coverages and blitz packages. RASUL's versatility means he can play outside, slide into the slot if needed, and even help out in run support. This move isn't just about getting another big name. It's about adding a player who perfectly complements what Miami is trying to build defensively. And with how pass-heavy the NFL has become, especially in the AFC, locking down elite cornerbacks is an absolute must if you want to contend. Of course, there's also the leadership factor to consider. RASUL Douglas isn't just a great player, he's a respected voice in the locker room. Throughout his career, from his early days with the Philadelphia Eagles to his Pro Bowl caliber performances with the Packers and Bills, RASUL has always been praised for his work ethic, football IQ, and ability to mentor younger players. The Dolphins have a relatively young core, especially in their secondary, and having someone like Douglas around can only elevate everyone's game. His presence sets the tone at practice, holds guys accountable, and fosters a winning culture. We've seen it time and time again. Great defenses aren't just built on talent, but on chemistry and leadership. With RASUL reportedly on the verge of signing, Miami is positioning itself as not just a talented team, but a mature playoff-ready squad. Let's not overlook the financial aspect of this rumored deal either. A 4-year contract suggests the Dolphins are making a significant investment, both in terms of salary cap space and long-term planning. While the exact figures haven't been released yet, analysts are already speculating that this deal could be worth upwards of $60 million, with a healthy chunk of that guaranteed. That's the going rate for a top-tier cornerback in today's market. Some skeptics might question whether it's wise to allocate that much money to another defensive back, given the big contracts already on Miami's books. But let's be honest. You can't put a price on elite defensive play, especially when you're trying to compete with high-powered offenses like the Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills. If Miami wants to make it out of the AFC gauntlet, they need to be able to shut teams down. RASUL Douglas helps them do exactly that. From a scheme perspective, RASUL Douglas fits like a glove in what the Dolphins are trying to accomplish under their defensive system. Miami's defense relies heavily on aggressive man-to-man coverage, exotic blitz packages, and creating turnovers. That's basically RASUL's bread and butter. He thrives in press coverage, isn't afraid to get physical at the line of scrimmage, and has the instincts to jump routes and take the ball away. Plus, he brings that big-bodied physical presence that can disrupt wide receivers' timing and frustrate quarterbacks. Imagine him going up against the likes of Stephon Diggs or Garrett Wilson twice a year. Those AFC East battles just got a whole lot more interesting. Miami's defensive coaching staff must be salivating at the prospect of scheming up new ways to use Douglas's unique skill set. This is a chess move, folks, and Miami's playing for checkmate. Let's talk about the ripple effect this move could have across the AFC East and beyond. The Dolphins are already viewed as one of the rising powers in the conference, and adding RASUL Douglas only strengthens that perception. The Bills just lost a key defender, the Jets are dealing with their own internal issues, and the Patriots, well, they're in full rebuild mode. This move could help Miami seize control of the division for the first time in decades. More importantly, it sends a message to the entire NFL. The Dolphins are not here just to make the playoffs, they're here to win it all. Moves like this show that the front office believes their Super Bowl window is open right now, and they are willing to spend, take risks, and do whatever it takes to make that dream a reality. This isn't just a signing, it's a statement. Of course, no signing is ever guaranteed to work out. There are always questions about fit, chemistry, and durability. RASUL Douglas has been remarkably durable throughout his career. But football is a violent sport, and anything can happen. Miami fans will be hoping that Douglas can stay healthy and maintain the high level of play he's shown in recent seasons. Additionally, there's the adjustment period. New team, new city, new system. Some players thrive in that situation, while others struggle to find their footing. But if there's one thing we know about RASUL, it's that he's a consummate professional who knows how to adapt. He's bounced around different teams and schemes, and each time he's elevated his game. That kind of resilience and adaptability is exactly what Miami needs as they make this aggressive push toward championship contention. So what's next? Well, as of now, all signs point to RASUL Douglas inking that 4-year deal with the Dolphins sometime within the next 24 to 48 hours. Once the official announcement drops, expect the Dolphins social media team to go absolutely wild. Highlight reels, hype videos, jersey swaps, you name it. And of course, fans are going to flood the comments with excitement, debates, and predictions for the upcoming season. It's the kind of move that energizes an entire fan base and sets the tone heading into training camp. For Rasul Douglas, it's a chance to cement his legacy and compete for a championship. For the Dolphins, it's another bold step in their quest to become not just contenders, but champions. And for the rest of us, it's another reminder that in the NFL, fortunes can change overnight with one blockbuster signing. So, Dolphins fans, how are we feeling about this one? Are you ready to see Rasul Douglas patrolling the secondary, making game-changing plays, and bringing that swagger to Hard Rock Stadium? This could be the start of something truly special in Miami. The combination of young talent, veteran leadership, and bold front office moves is creating a perfect storm down in South Beach. And let me tell you, the rest of the league better take notice. Because if Rasul Douglas does indeed sign on a dotted line, the Miami Dolphins are about to become one of the scariest defenses in the entire NFL. Keep it locked right here for all the latest updates. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a breaking story from the world of football. This is going to be one wild ride, folks. Let's go. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.